Welcome everybody to how to do everything with the Traktor Control S4. My name is Mike Henderson, also known as ENDO. Throughout my years as a DJ product specialist for Traktor, I've trained all sorts of DJs, everyone from Grandmaster Flash to Carl Cox, Dubfire, DJ Scribble, Danny Tenaglia, all kinds of DJs on how to use the Traktor software and empower them to use the features in Traktor to enhance their workflow. So I'm really excited to take you on this journey and share my knowledge of Traktor with you all. So this is going to be a full-on masterclass on Traktor. We've done the work of dividing this video into chapters, which you can click on down below, and you can skip to your favorite parts, or go make yourself a nice pot of tea, and you can sit down and watch the whole thing start to finish. Some of you might be brand new to Traktor, just taking the S4 out of the box, and some of you might be veterans who've been using Traktor for decades. But no matter what your skill level or experience, I'm sure all of you are going to pick up all kinds of cool things, and maybe things you didn't even know about Traktor or the S4. So buckle your seatbelts. Let's learn how to do everything with the Traktor Control S4. All right, so let's start from scratch. Get it? Let's see what's in the box. Exciting. So we got the Traktor Control S4 here. This is going to be our weapon of choice for this tutorial series. And then we have a USB cable. If you have one of the newer Macs, you may need a USB-C dongle. We have the power supply, and we also have different power adapters for different countries. So don't lose these. You might need these depending on where you're traveling to. And then last but definitely not least, we have this envelope here, which contains our Traktor Control S4 serial. You're going to need this to enter this into native access. So first, we're going to plug in the power supply, just like that. Now we're going to plug in the USB cable, and then the other end goes into my computer. Now I'm going to plug the XLR cables into my amplifier or speakers, and the other end is going to go into the back of the S4. If I'm plugging the S4 into a DJ mixer that's at a club, for example, I can use either the XLR or the RCA outputs and plug those into the line-in channel of a DJ mixer. And then for our DJ booth monitors, we're going to take 2 1/4-inch cables, and one end is going to go into the inputs of our DJ booth monitors. The other end is going to go into the back of the S4, just like that. So the Traktor Control S4, it's an all-in-one controller. It's a fully integrated DJ hardware and software performance system that you can use to not only play your tracks, but you can use it to remix your tracks live. And it has controls to do almost everything inside of Traktor. One of the cool things that I actually love about this controller is that you can use it without Traktor, since it's a standalone DJ mixer that has full EQs and filters and volume faders. So you can plug in your turntables or CD media players into the S4 and use it without Traktor. But if you do have Traktor, then this controller basically lets you put your hands inside of the software, since it has a fully integrated 4-channel mixer with EQs, filters. It has jogwheels that you can use to control all 4 decks inside of Traktor. The jogwheel actually has some cool features in it. One of those being that it has motorized jogwheels, so it spins around as you play it. It has haptic feedback, so if I have cue points or loops in my track, I can actually feel the vibration of the cue points and loops, kind of similar to when you're pushing certain buttons on your phone, you get this vibration. It also has a built-in 24-bit 96 kilohertz sound card, so you can use this as an audio interface for any program, really. So there's all kinds of cool stuff you can do with it. Let's check out what it can do. So you can see in the middle, we have a 4-channel mixer, and this has everything that you would expect from a DJ mixer, such as volume faders, EQs, gain, cue buttons to play the track in the headphones. We also have a crossfader that you can assign either in the software or on the front of the hardware, and a mixer effects section, which you can use to control the filters or the mixer effects. Now, some of the most important things to know on this controller, we have the master volume up here. We have the booth monitor down here, so you can control the house volume and your booth monitors if you have them. Down below that, we have all kinds of functions, such as a pad section here, which can be in hot cues mode, samples mode, or stems mode. We have a play and cue button. You can control the speed here. We have some different jogwheel modes up here. We also have a great browsing section, so you can use this to scroll through your favorite playlist, add tracks to preparation list, right? So all kinds of cool browsing features. And then we have an effects section here. We have 2 effects units that I can assign individually to each deck. So on the back of the controller, we have 2 XLR outputs, which you can use to either plug into the house sound system or another DJ mixer. We also have an RCA output. Same thing with that. You can use this to plug into another DJ mixer that's already at the club, or to your PA system or amplifier. Then we have a booth output, which you can use for booth monitors. We have 4 inputs for line or phono inputs. You can also connect a microphone. Now, one awesome thing on the S4 that I love, and you might not know about, is it actually has a USB input to plug in a USB hub. So you have a Traktor Control F1, for example, or other controllers, you could plug the hub into here. We also have a USB input to connect to your computer and a power supply as well as the power button. And then if you're using turntables, we also have a ground plug here where you can plug the turntable's ground wires into. Now that we've talked about the hardware, let's talk about Traktor. So Traktor is the most powerful and versatile DJ software on the market. You can use it in so many different ways. You can use it with a controller, or you can use it with turntables. So I can use a special timecode record to control Traktor. I can use it with CD media players in what's called HID mode. Just so many possibilities of how you can use Traktor to fit your custom workflow. Inside of Traktor, not only can you just play your tracks and mix them, but Traktor unlocks all kinds of new features that you can do, such as using over 40 high-quality effects. You can use remix decks, stems, hot cues, loops, beat jump, all kinds of stuff that we're going to get into in this tutorial series. So now that we have everything plugged in, I'm going to want to register my hardware inside of Native Access. So to do that, I'm going to go to native-instruments.com and click on Support, and then download Native Access here, depending on what kind of computer you're on. So Native Access is a program that's going to let you download, install, and activate all of your Native Instruments products. So I'm going to go here, install Native Access, drag it to my applications, then I'm going to open it. Now that Native Access is open, I'm going to click Add a Serial, and I'm going to type in the serial number that was inside of that envelope I showed you. So we've added our serial number, and now Traktor Pro 3 should show up inside of Native Access, and I can just click the Install button to install it. If I ever wanted to update Traktor, I can go to the Updates tab and check to see which Native Instruments products need updating, and if there's a new update of Traktor, you'll see it here. And now I'm going to download any drivers that I need. So I'm going to go back and click on Downloads. And under All Downloads, I'm going to click Drivers and Other Files. Then I'm just going to do a search for Traktor Control S4, MK3. If you're on Windows, you're going to need to download the audio drivers for the S4, and you can do that right here. If you're on Mac, you won't need to download any drivers, but whatever system you're on, you're going to definitely want to update the firmware of the S4. So I'm going to download the latest firmware updater by clicking on Firmware Updater for Traktor Control S4 MK3. I'm going to unzip it, and then I'm going to update the firmware updater here. Okay, so now that I've downloaded the firmware updater, I'm going to open it. And then in this window, you're going to see what firmware version that I'm on. So the installed firmware is 0.6.1, and then the updater firmware is 0.6.0. So apparently I'm living in the future. Now we have our software activated, everything's plugged in. Some last things you might want to do is just go through your computer settings and make sure all of your audio settings are optimized so Traktor will have the best performance. You can do that by clicking on the link in the description, and we have a full tutorial on how to set up your Mac or Windows computer for audio processing. And if you have a Mac with a touch bar on it, just go to this link here and you can check out this article on how to change your touch bar settings. That way that Traktor behaves in the best possible way when you're playing live. So right now everything is turned off. I'm going to want to turn down the master volume, the booth volume, maybe the gains as well, just to be safe. And then I'm going to turn on the Traktor Control S4. And after that, I'm going to want to turn on my speakers, and then I'm going to open Traktor. Traktor is located under Applications, Native Instruments, Traktor Pro 3. And now the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's fire up our S4, let's fire up Traktor. Okay, so if this is your first time opening Traktor, you might be prompted with this window saying the Setup Wizard. If you've already installed and used Traktor, you probably don't want to use the Setup Wizard. You can hit Cancel because this will overwrite all of your settings. But if this is your first time using Traktor, here's how to use the Setup Wizard. So I'm just going to hit Next here. Select how many decks I prefer to use, either 2-track decks and a mixer, 4-track decks, hit Next, and then I'm going to hit Finish. And now I'm going to configure my audio settings. So if I go to Preferences, Audio Setup, in my audio device drop-down menu, I'm going to select Traktor Control S4 MK3. The sample rate, I like to use 44/100. And then buffer size, I either use 512 or 1024. 512 is pretty good, but if you find that your CPU is being strained, you could always raise the buffer size to 1024. Then I'm going to go to output routing. I have 2 mixing modes. Internal mixing modes if I'm using the S4 or any controller that's controlling Traktor's internal mixer. External mixing mode is if I'm using an external DJ mixer or sound card. So we're going to choose internal. Where it says output monitor, I'm going to choose headphone left and right. And that's used to pre-listen to my songs in the headphones. The output master is where I'm sending the master output out of. So I'm going to choose main booth left and main booth right. I'm going to hit close. Now that I got everything set up, let's see if we got sound. I'm going to load a song. I'm going to hit play. Now I'm going to slowly turn up the gain. So if all's working correctly, we should see signal coming through the channel. I'm going to turn the volume fader up slowly. And now I'm going to turn the master output up. Now we're ready to rock. Now, if you ever have any issues with getting audio or any other issues with Traktor at all, there's a couple resources that you can use to get support. The first is the Native Instruments DJ Support tool. I can get there by going to native-instruments.com and clicking on Support, DJ, Get DJ Support. And then you're going to get this tool that will ask you some questions and walk you through exactly how to troubleshoot your issue. And if needed, we'll take you to a support agent. Another place you can get support is the Native Instruments community. You can get that by going to the Native Instruments homepage and then clicking on Community. And here you can interact with other Traktor users and other Native Instruments users, and you can get all kinds of great information there. Another thing to do with your S4 from time to time, especially if the knobs on the hardware are not perfectly matching the software knobs, is to recalibrate the S4. Here's how to do it. If I go to the Preferences, Traktor Control S4 MK3, you can see I have these 2 recalibrate buttons. First, I'm going to recalibrate the upper effects units. So I'm going to click Recalibrate. Make sure you follow these instructions carefully. So first I'm going to move the 4 effects 1 and affects 2 knobs to the full left position, counterclockwise, and make sure they're tightly to the left, and then hit OK. Then it asks me to move them all to the right. And then hit OK. And then it says to move them to the center position. And they'll click in place, hit OK. And now it says calibration successful. Now I'm going to go to the mixer section and hit recalibrate. So it says to move all 12 EQ knobs and 4 mixer effects knobs to the full left. So I'm going to move all these knobs to the full left and just make sure that they're all the way. And hit OK. And then it says to move all of these knobs to the right. So I'm moving them all to the right. Double checking. And then hit OK. And then it says to move them all to the exact center. So make sure they click in the center. And hit OK. And now we have calibration successful. All right, so now our S4 is calibrated. This is something you should do every once in a while just to make sure that the knobs in the software are matching the hardware. It's kind of like getting a tune-up for your S4. All right, so now let's have a look at the Traktor software. In the software, there's a few sections that you're going to want to need to know about. First, we have the decks. So the decks are like your virtual turntables, which you can use to load and play stereo audio tracks, regular tracks, but you can also use the decks in a few different modes. You can use it to play stems, remix decks, or you can even use it as a live input to route instruments, microphones, or any audio source through the decks. And this contains all the kind of things that you would expect out of a DJ mixer, such as EQs, volume faders, gain, headphone cue, where you can actually listen to the tracks through your headphones, and a crossfader, which can be assigned in the software. Down below the decks, we have the browser section, which you can make playlists, you can access your iTunes library, your personal track collection, and you can edit your track info, and all kinds of things like that. So we have the browser tree here on the left, and then we have the track list here on the right, which shows you everything in the playlist that you have selected. Above that, we have the favorites section, which you can use to make shortcuts to your 12 favorite playlists. At the very top here, we have the global section, which contains our master volume, and it also contains 2 effects units, which can be assigned to the decks. It contains our master clock settings. And then up here at the top, we have the header section. In the header, you can find some things like you can see what time it is while you're playing your set. Very important. We have the master levels, and you can access the preferences. You can turn on full screen mode. And up here at the top, we have our layout selector, which we can select different custom layouts that can either hide or show different elements of the Traktor software that we want to access quickly. So you have a fully customized interface based to your own personal DJ workflow. All right, so now let's talk about the browser in Traktor. The browser is where you can make playlists, we can import our music, we can access our iTunes music, aka music library, or we can access things like Beatport link from the internet right inside of Traktor. So on the left side, we have the tree section of the browser. I always joke about we have the tree to the left and we have the forest to the right, which contains all the tracks that are located inside of whatever playlist or folder I have selected. So in the browser tree, we have the track collection. This contains everything that I've imported into Traktor or everything I might want to play inside of Traktor. And the track collection is actually automatically filtered by artist, releases, labels, genres, and we have specialized playlists for all of your tracks. These are regular tracks, as well as stems, samples, and all remix sets. Down below that, we have the playlists. So here you can create playlists. You can make playlist folders, and you can organize all your playlists as well. So to create a playlist, I can just Control-click on the playlist folder and say Create Playlist. I'll call this S4 Jams. Or I can create a playlist folder just by Control-clicking on Playlists and saying Create Folder. And then I could drag any of the playlists I made into that folder. All right, now down below that, we have Beatport and BeatSource streaming. You're only going to see these if you have a Beatport link or a BeatSource link account. So if you have an account, you can access all your Beatport link playlists, and you can access billions of tracks, maybe not billions, maybe millions of tracks inside of either Beatport or BeatSource. Beatport is more tailored towards dance music, house music, techno, dubstep, drum and bass, whereas BeatSource has more open format, hip-hop, R&B, things like that. I can go here and I can access the Beatport Top 100 for any of the genres. I can access my playlists, or even curated playlists that are made by the Beatport team. Underneath that, we have the Explorer, which is actually a mirror of our entire hard drive. So if I wanted to access the desktop, for example, go into the Explorer, I can choose Macintosh hard drive, users, my name, desktop, and then I can just drag a song from the desktop into a deck or into a playlist or my collection as well. And under the Explorer, we have audio recordings. These are all the sets that I've recorded. And then we have Apple Music underneath that, and we can access our entire Apple Music library. And this is a read-only version of your Apple Music library. And that's actually where I like to organize and create my playlists as well. And then you can just pop open Traktor and everything's going to be in there. Down here at the bottom, we have the history. This will show me everything I've played in that Traktor session. So now let's talk about how do we get our music into Traktor. The first way is I can just drag and drop some songs from the Finder, let's say from my desktop, right into the track collection. So if I go to track collection here, I find the folder in the Finder that I want to drag in, and then I just select a couple songs, drag it to the track collection. And if this is the first time that we've dragged a song into our track collection, you'll get a pop-up window that asks me if I want to analyze the songs. And this will analyze for things like BPM, key, the waveform, beat grid, and all those kind of things. The other way is I can go to my Explorer, find the folder on my hard drive that I want to import, and drag them in that way directly inside of Traktor. Now there's some cool tricks in the Traktor preferences that will allow me to automate the process of importing my music so I don't have to do it manually every time. So me, for example, I use Dropbox for all my music collection. And I have my Dropbox folder organized by year, month, folder. If I go to the preferences here, under Preferences, File Management, Music Folders, I can choose the folder that contains all my music. So you can see right here that I have my 2023 folder selected. So I can add a folder by clicking Add, find the folder on my hard drive, and then choose it. And up here at the top of the preferences, we have some options here. The first one is Import Music Folders at Startup. This will make sure that every time I load Traktor, it imports all the new music that's in that folder that I selected. And then underneath that, we have Analyze New Imported Tracks. So not only will it import them, but it will also analyze everything for you. Traktor has a pretty powerful search bar that you can use to filter your playlist by things like artist, genre, label, or you can search your entire track collection. The search bar is right up above the browser tree here. I can click inside of it and type anything. Let's say I want to search for Sharam tracks. I can type in Sharam, and you can see everything that's by Sharam in this playlist. If I hit the Enter key, it'll actually search my entire track collection and find all the Sharam tracks in my track collection. But I'm just going to jump back to this playlist here. Now in the search bar, if I click this little drop-down arrow here, I have all these different categories that I can filter my search by, such as label, genre, remixer, right? So let's try searching by label. And I'm going to search for one of my favorite labels, Bedrock. And you can see everything from Bedrock recordings that's in this playlist is showing, right? I can also do a search by, let's say, artist, and I can search for every Victor Calderone song that's in the playlist, and there you go. The S4 gives us some functions, some knobs and buttons that we can use to scroll through our playlists, our track lists, and load tracks without having to touch the computer. So if I want to scroll through my playlists, I can hold the Shift button and turn the browse encoder. Now you can see that it's scrolling up and down through my browser tree. And once I found the playlist that I want to play out of, I release the Shift button and turn the browse encoder, and now it's scrolling through my song list. And then I can load the song by pushing the browse encoder. The S4 has some nice features that allow you to just quickly go through your playlist, through your tracks, and even add tracks to what's called a preparation list. The preparation playlist is a special kind of playlist that you can use to play songs that you want to play later on in your set, or just put songs that you don't want to forget about later. So let's say I find a song that I might want to play later on. I can push this preparation list button, and it's going to add that song to the special kind of playlist here called the preparation playlist. Now I can see it right now in my playlist favorites, but you can also see it down here in the browser tree as well. When I add a song to the preparation playlist, you're going to see that it has this little icon here in the browser that looks exactly like this little button here. And that's telling me that I've added the song to the preparation playlist. Okay, let's have a more in-depth look at the browser and talk about some things I can do to improve my workflow and my organization as a DJ so I can find the songs that I want to play quickly and on the fly. First thing I'll talk about is something that I love to use is called smart playlists. So a smart playlist is a special kind of playlist that automatically filters your entire music collection based on certain rules or attributes that you set for the playlist. So let's check out how to make them. If I control click or right click on the playlist node, I can choose Create Smart List. Let's make a smart list for everything on Bedrock recordings. So I'll name the playlist. And down here I can set rules for the playlist. So I'm going to choose this drop-down menu. You can see I have all these attributes to choose from. I can make smart playlists for genre, label, artist, color, right? So I'm going to choose label. And then next to that, I can choose contains, is, does not contain, and all these other options. So I'm going to choose contains and then type Bedrock. I'll hit OK. And now it's made this smart playlist marked by a gear icon here, with everything in my collection from Bedrock. So I have about 147 Bedrock songs, and then I can sort that by whatever I want. Let's make another smart playlist for artists. So if I control click on playlists, I'm going to say create smart lists, and I'm going to make a playlist called Deep Dish. And in that playlist, I want to show all the tracks that are by Dubfire, Sharam, and Deep Dish. So I'm going to choose the drop-down menu and select Artist. I'll say Dubfire. Now, above the rules, you can see this checkbox for Match All Conditions. I can turn that on or off. So if I turn that off, that means that it's going to find anything by any of the artists I put below, or any of the rules I put below. So I'm going to say artist contains Sharam, artist contains Deep Dish. So now it's going to combine everything from all of these artists. I'm going to hit OK, and there we go. I have a playlist for every track that I have from Sharam, Dubfire, and Deep Dish. Now you might notice in my list here that a lot of my tracks are color-coded. You can use it to color code the songs in the browser so you have a more visual idea of what the vibe is for the track. You can use color coding for genre, vibe, or whatever you want. My personal system, I use color coding for vibe. So orange is groovy, violet is progressive, magenta is like opener beach tracks, but they can be whatever you want. So to color code your tracks, first you got to show the color column. So if I control click at the top of the browser, I can choose color to show the column. And just to note, you can do this with any other column. Like if I want to hide the genre column, I can control click, remove genre, and now I've created more space here. So now that I have the color column shown, I can control click in the color column and choose the color right up here. So let's call this one orange. love, love, love. Let's give the love, love, love a red color, right? And now you can see the tracks are color-coded in my browser. You also might notice that I have ratings for a lot of my tracks. So ratings traditionally are used to mark how much you like a track, like from 1 to 5 stars. Maybe 5 stars means it's one of your favorite tracks. But the way that I use my ratings is for energy level. And this has been a technique that's been adapted by thousands of DJs worldwide, and now you. For example, 5 stars is maximum energy. 3 stars might be openers. 2 stars might be some down tempo, right? So I can just go down here and set ratings for my tracks accordingly. Now let's talk about how to edit metadata. You can edit it inline, meaning I can just click on the name here and type whatever I'd like, right? And then just edit it that way. Or if I want to get more in depth, I can control click on a track. It has to be in a Traktor playlist or the track collection, and click edit. And now that I'm in the edit window, I can go here and edit all kinds of attributes: remixer, producer, label, catalog number. So I can really be a librarian with my DJ library. Speaking of my DJ library, a great thing to know how to do is how to do a consistency check in Traktor. So a consistency check in Traktor is like doing a diagnostic for your whole track collection. It's going to tell you how many tracks are missing, how many tracks haven't been analyzed, tracks that are missing the waveform, and things like that. It's a good thing to do every once in a while just to make sure that there's no missing songs in your collection, because you don't want to be playing a gig and loading a track and then getting a missing track warning, right? So to do a consistency check, I'm just going to control click on the track collection and say check consistency. And now it's scanning my entire collection for missing songs and songs haven't been analyzed. Okay, so now the consistency check is done, and I can see I have 12,000 tracks, 8 of which are missing, 0 tracks not analyzed, but 69 tracks are missing stripe. So if I want to just go through and batch analyze everything that needs to be analyzed, I can just hit the analyze button. I'm going to choose all. And now it's just going to go through and analyze all those songs. If I go to missing tracks, I can see the tracks that are missing from my collection, and I can relocate those all at once. Right now I only have 8 missing tracks, but let's say I had hundreds of them. I can just click relocate. I can find the folder on my hard drive, and it'll scan my whole hard drive or whatever folder I've chosen, and it will relocate everything. Or I can just click remove missing if I want, and it'll remove any track that's missing from my collection. Okay, so now let's talk about Beatport link and BeatSource link in Traktor. So first you're going to want to make sure to log into your Beatport account by going to Preferences, Streaming, and log in using your login credentials. And once you do that, in the tree, you're going to notice that either the Beatport or BeatSource icon shows up. Let's just kind of have a tour of how these playlists work and how everything works with Beatport and Traktor. So if I click on the search playlist, I can actually search Beatport's entire library, and it behaves just like Traktor's search, except it's searching the entire Beatport library. So first I'm going to choose what I want to search for by clicking this drop-down menu. I'm going to choose label. And let's choose compact records. So I'm just going to type in compact. And now you can see that the search results are updating. They're going to keep updating until we get all the results. So now it's loading everything from compact records. And if I want to, I can sort that by whatever I want. I like to sort by release date. So I can actually go and see what the first song on compact records is, and I can play it. Or I can play, we're up to over 900 songs now. I can play compact records tracks for days. So if I click on a song and load it into a deck, what it's doing is it's downloading the song into the deck, and once it's downloaded, it's there, it'll play, it won't skip, right? And then I can play it. And now if I want to download this song for offline use, let's say I'm DJing in the jungle in Brazil with no internet, how am I going to play these Beatport link tracks, I can actually save them to my offline locker. And I can do that by right or control clicking on the song, and I can say add to offline locker. And then if I go to my offline locker here, I can see all the songs that I've downloaded, and I can play those without having an internet connection. Now let's have a look at these folders down here in the Beatport streaming node. First we have the curated playlists. These are playlists that are curated by the Beatport staff. So if I go to any of these genres, let's say drum and bass, you can see some playlists that the Beatport staff have made. Underneath that we have genres, and this is the whole ocean of everything that's been released in that genre that's on Beatport. Same thing, we can sort by release dates, so the newest stuff's at the top, and you can really have some fun digging through and finding songs that other DJs might not have. Under that we have My Playlists, and these are playlists that I've created. So you can create Beatport link playlists on the Beatport website just by clicking on the drop-down arrow next to a song and choosing Add to Playlist. One of my secret weapons for making Beatport link playlists is called SoundIs, and that will allow you to transfer music between streaming services. So I could take my Spotify playlist or my Tidal playlists and convert that to Beatport link. Underneath that you have the top 100, so you can browse the top 100 songs on Beatport in any genre at that current time. So I know some of these things might be a little bit dry, but learning the browser and keeping your music library organized is vital to being a digital DJ with so many thousands of songs. When we're in the moment playing a gig, we want to be able to find those songs that we need to play quickly and on the fly. So using things like color coding, rating, organizing your playlist folders, and just making it easy for yourself to find the right songs in the right moment is very important to being a DJ. We can use the S4 to browse through our playlist, our track list. We can even search through our favorites playlists and add to what's called a preparation list. So if I click on the View button on the S4, that's going to go into browser-only mode, where the decks are going to be collapsed and I can see more songs in my browser list. If I want to scroll through the list, I can use the browse encoder to find the song that I want to play. And then to load it, I just push on the browse encoder and it loads into the deck. I can then push View again to uncollapse the decks or expand them. Now, next to the browse encoder, we have a few buttons. The top button is the Preview button. This is a great feature because let's say you have all this music, but you don't remember what it sounds like just by looking at the name, right? I can actually push the Preview button and it's going to play the track into Traktor's Preview player. The Preview player is right up here above the search bar. If you don't see the Preview player, you can show it by going to Preferences, Browser Details, and choose the Show Preview Player option. Now, when I preview a track, it's actually going to be coming through the headphones while I hold the button down. And while the song's playing in my headphones, I can actually hold the button and turn the browse encoder to skip to another section of the song and hear what the middle sounds like, for example. And then I'll let go and the song stops. Underneath the Preview button, we have the Favorites button. And this will scroll through Traktor's Playlist Favorites. So the Playlist Favorites section is this section up here right above the browser list. And that is 12 shortcuts to my favorite playlists or folders inside of Traktor. So if I hold the Favorites button down and turn the encoder, that will scroll through them. If I want to add a playlist to this favorite section, all I need to do is click on a playlist or a folder and just click and drag the name to the favorite slot. And now we have a favorite shortcut to that playlist. All right, so now let's talk about the decks in Traktor. So Traktor has 4 virtual decks inside of the software. And the decks can be a track deck, remix deck, stem deck, or even a live input. Right now we're just talking about track decks. So I'm going to load a song into the decks using my load that I talked about before. And once I've loaded the track, I can see the full waveform overview here in the high resolution display. This is going to show me all of the breakdowns and drops in the song. So if the waveform is taller, that means it's louder. If it's skinnier, that means it's quieter. So inside of the software, if I look at the decks here, you can see I have 2 waveform views. I have the stripe view and the waveform view. The stripe view also just shows me all of the breakdowns and the whole entire track. And then up above that, the waveform view is more zoomed in. You can think of this as a sort of world view on Google Maps versus street view. Now, to play the decks, first to get signal, I'm going to turn up channel A. We'll get more into this later. I'm going to use the Jogwheels to find the first kick drum of the track. So there it is, you hear it. And I'm just going to kind of scratch over that first beat because it's fun. And I'm going to find the first transient there. And note that you can also feel the vibration of that grid marker that Traktor has automatically set. This is called haptic feedback. All right, so I found that first beat. Once I found that, what I'm going to do is hit the Q button. And Q is going to set a temporary floating Q point in the deck, which is signified by the triangle underneath the waveform. All right, so now every time I hit Q, it's triggering that beat for as long as I hold down the Q button. Right, and then when I release the Q button, it just jumps right back to that point. Now if I want to play the deck, I can hit the play button. And now the song is playing. All right, so while the song is playing, I can slow it down or speed it up using the tempo fader. So if this tempo fader is in the middle, you'll see this blue dot here telling me that I'm at the 0 position. That's the original speed that the producer has produced the song at. So I can slow it down by moving the tempo fader up. You can hear how it's getting slower and deeper. And now I can speed it up by going up. And as I'm slowing down and speeding up, you can actually see this number changing on the display. That's our beats per minute, or BPM. Now I can stop the deck by just hitting the play pause button. Now let's say I want to seek through the deck. So I can do that by holding the shift button, and I can turn the jog wheel while I'm holding the shift button, and it's going to seek a lot faster in the track. So I can actually just go to this beat in the middle of the track here, hit Q, and now we have a Q at the middle of the song. All right, now let's say I'm like queuing a song and I'm like, I want the song to keep playing. I can actually hold my finger on the Q button and hit play. Now I can let go and the song will continue to play. So now there's a couple different modes with the jog wheel. So there's jog mode, which I'm using now. And there's also turntable mode. So if I click turntable mode, you can see how the actual platter is rotating using the motorized jog wheel, just like a turntable would. It just gives me a bit more tactile feel and the feel that I'm actually controlling a turntable, right? So as far as the platters go, the top of the platter is used to scratch, whereas the side of the jog wheel is used to nudge. So you all remember maybe a Technics 1200, you got the metal side of the turntable. If I actually hold my finger on it, I'm slowing the deck down. And if I push on it, it's temporarily speeding the deck up. And then if I want to do a rewind, I can put my finger at the 9 o'clock position and spin back as fast as I can. And that's the decks in Traktor. The mixer lives right here in the middle of the controller, and its job is to take the audio signal that's coming in from the decks, and we can process it using things like gain or using EQ to process the frequency content of the decks. So I'll show you how the mixer works and everything that's in it. Each deck in Traktor has its own channel in the mixer. We have 4 channels, C, A, B, and D. Each channel or channel strip has a gain control. Next to the gain, you can actually see the EXT button, and that's if I want to use like an external audio source. Also 3 EQs, low, mid, and highs that we can use to process the frequency content. We have a filter here, or mixer effects section. And then we have a volume fader. And then we have a Q button that we can use to listen to the audio in our headphones. Now, some important things that you're going to need to know about the mixer are we have the master volume up here, and this could be, for example, controlling the level of the house or the club. Then we have a booth volume here, and this is if you have 2 speakers in your DJ booth, so this will control the DJ booth volume. And then down below that, we have controls for our headphones. So we have a headphone mix, and I can use this to either go between listening to only the track that has the Q button turned on, or tracks. If I turn this to the middle, I'm listening to a balance of what's selected with the Q and the master. And then if I turn this all the way to the right, I'm only listening to the master signals. That's like everything coming out of Traktor. So I like to play with the Q mix all the way counterclockwise. And then we have our headphone volume here. Now, as I mentioned, each channel has its own volume fader. And this is like opening the dam. It's like this is the amount of water coming through, and this is the dam controlling the water coming through, if that makes sense. And then for each channel, I can assign it to the left or right side of the crossfader. So a crossfader will allow me to seamlessly fade between one channel or 2 to another channel, right? Depending on what's assigned to the crossfader. So I can assign the crossfader. In the software, you can actually see we have the crossfader showing here on the mixer, and I can assign it by pushing the A, B, C, or D buttons on the crossfader. So a traditional crossfader assignment would be deck A on the left side and deck B on the right side. If I want to assign the crossfader on the hardware, I have these crossfader assignment switches on the very front. So I have for each channel a crossfader switch. For example, deck A I can assign to the left side, the right side, or if I put it in the middle, that means the crossfader is unassigned. Now, me personally, I play with 4 decks, so I don't even use the crossfader, so I have all my switches in the middle. But if I want to assign deck A and B to the crossfader, I'll do that by assigning crossfader A to the left and B to the right, and you can see that mirrors in the software. Now I'm going to start playing some music and just kind of explain what's happening. So I have all 4 volume faders down. I'm going to hit play. And now I hit play on the deck. You see I have some signal coming through here. Now what we want to do is we want to use the gain to adjust the incoming signal. Now if the signal is in the blues, that means that we're below the headroom level. So as soon as I start hitting yellow, that means I'm in the headroom, which is like the yellow traffic light telling you, slow down, be careful. And then if I hit the reds, that means I'm totally clipping. Never hit the reds. So we got a good level here. We're just at the max blue. I like to play there. And now I'm going to start bringing in the song. All right, so you hear as I turn the volume fader up, the song is slowly fading in here. And now that we have our volume fader all the way up, the deck is playing fully, I can use the master to turn my house sound system up. And if I want to turn the booth up, I can just use the booth. All right, so now that I've talked about how to use the hardware mixer, let's talk about the software and how we can further customize the mixer and how it sounds, and also the look of the interface of the mixer inside of Traktor. So I'm going to go here into the preferences, which is the gear icon in the upper right-hand side of the screen. And now I have some settings here under Preferences, Mixer. Under EQ filter selection, we have a few different EQ types that emulate a lot of popular DJ mixers that you might see in the club. And each one of these EQ types has a different character. Some of them might fully attenuate things like the bass or the highs. Some of them might give you a little bit more boost. If I choose P600, this is an emulation of a Japanese hardware manufacturer's mixer. I'll let you guess what that is. We also have an NUO, which is an Eckler NUO4. We have a P800, Z ISO, and Zone. Now, most of these EQ types only have 3 EQs. One of them that's different is the Zone. So the Zone, we actually have a low, low mid, mid high, and high. There's no right mixer to use. It's really like, what does your ear like the most? Like some of these have kill buttons, some of them don't. So just play around and see what you like the most. So if you're using an external DJ mixer or an external mixing mode or like a sound card with Traktor, make sure to use the classic EQ type since this won't color your sound. Traktor actually lets you customize the interface to only show certain elements that you want showing. So if I go to Preferences Mixer here, I can actually turn the EQ and fader off. So if I'm using the S4, I might not need to see the EQ in the software, and that will give me more screen real estate. I can also turn things off like the filter, gain, Q, and balance, or the crossfader, depending on if I use it or not. I'm just going to turn all 3 of these on for now. All right, so now that you've learned all the functions on the mixer, the purpose of the mixer is so that we can get our tracks at an equal volume so the listener doesn't have to turn the volume up and down while they're listening to your DJ mixes, and also so you can do smoother transitions. And that's how to use the mixer on the S4. Did you know that on top of being an amazing DJ controller, the S4 can also be used as a sound card for any audio application or DAW on your computer? And it's very easy to set up. So to use the S4 as an audio interface, I'm just going to go to the Apple and click System Preferences, Sound, Output, and I'm going to choose Traktor Control S4 MK3. I can also do the same with the input and where it says Sound Effects. So now everything is coming out of the S4. So now if I go to any DAW on my computer, or even Apple Music, for example, I can play a song in Apple Music, and now we have music coming out of our S4. So now if you have the S4 as part of your studio setup, and it's the main part that you want to be sending sound out of, you can now use the S4 as a sound card for any of your applications and have it ready to go when you want to use Traktor as well. All right, so we're just scratching the surface of what you can do in Traktor. Are you having fun yet? Hopefully at this point, you're playing around with your tunes. Stay tuned for more in part 2. We're gonna get even geekier. Keep it locked.